Hi, everybody. I am going to just make a quick video about Chaturanga per request. This is actually one of my favorite things to teach on because it's one of the hardest things to do. And it is, if you feel like just for fun getting into it, kind of the basis of all arm balances for the most part, with exception, of course. So the basis of Chaturanga then is plank. So if you're not super comfortable in plank, if you tend to get tired pretty easily, if you find that your body kind of sags, and we'll go through all that, or that you have to keep your hips lifted up really high, kind of like down dog, definitely practice plank first, just over and over and over. Practice holding for longer periods of time. So two things that you'll need for this are a yoga block, preferably two. Mine, for some strange reason, have all disappeared. We've been really gutting and organizing closets and stuff like that in our quarantine period. And I had two nice cork blocks and they're gone. So I happened to find this one single one that somehow didn't get taken to at one gym or another, as I've done with all the rest of them. So I've only got one. Two is better. One will do. And a strap. So if you don't have a yoga specific strap, you can definitely use just like a belt or a men's like necktie, something along those lines. So that's it. Yoga mat's good too, but even you could do without that. So first, let's go through a couple of the really common problems with Chaturanga. One is that in plank, either you're kind of saggy, like I mentioned, or that you're way lifted because it's hard to hold for long. So that's one problem then that will translate into your Chaturanga as well. This can be done with knees down too. So if you find that that's you, but that you're pretty comfortable holding plank for a decent amount of time with the knees on the mat, go for that version. And we'll practice that as well. Another problem that is often seen in Chaturanga is that the elbows jut way backwards. Ideally, you want, when you bend, you want your elbow stacked right on top of your wrist. If your elbow goes back really far, that's just going to be hard on the elbow joint itself. Another is similar, but with the shoulders, in that as you come forward and down, that your shoulders dip really low, that they're coming lower than your elbows. That over time, repeated over and over and over again, is going to end up causing trouble for your shoulders. So with our two props, we can begin to do away with some of those problems. The most common way that I see this practice with props to kind of learn is with a strap. I think the strap is great. It definitely gives you a feel for what maybe you're doing right and what maybe you're doing wrong. I think relying on the strap is going to end up doing, I don't know if doing more harm than good is a good way to put that, but it's going to end up so that you begin relying on the strap. And then when you take it away, it's harder than it would have been to just learn it without. That said, let's go ahead and do that version first. So taking a strap, you want to make that loop, and then the loop should, in effect, then you should be able to put it on your upper arm right above where your elbow is. And if you put your hands straight out, they should be shoulder width apart. You don't want them splayed really wide. You don't want them really close. That way, when you come into plank, the strap is pulled taut. Your wrists are right underneath your shoulders. So with that, come into plank, knees up or down. So I'll do it with knees down this first time. When you come into Chaturanga, from plank, you want to take a little baby shift more forward and then bend the elbows. So if you do that, you can really feel when you come down that strap pulling against the upper arms pretty tightly. And that's because one big tendency or problem in Chaturanga is that the elbows splay wide. So we want them pulled in next to the ribs. And that is what the strap is doing for us. So I think that comes from a lot of times we're more used to doing traditional push-ups, or that's what we've learned first anyway, and the elbows go wider there. In Chaturanga, though, unlike a traditional pull-up, the elbows are pulled in really tight. We want them all the way into the sides of the body, so that's what this strap is doing for us. So go ahead and try that again. Right above the elbows, come into plank on or off of the knees. Take that little baby shift forward, and then when you bend the elbows, you should be able to hold here for a couple breaths, right? Elbows should feel like they're pulled in really close to the sides of the body again. Wrists right under elbows, shoulders no lower than elbows, okay? So that's something that you can practice repeatedly. Again, I wouldn't rely on that one too awful much. It becomes more difficult once you let the strap go then. With the block, we'll do a couple things with this. One, again, let's start there, is to see if the elbows tend to go wide. So now we've got to work those muscles on our own. We can't rely on that strap. So I only have one. Again, 2 is better. So with the block, you'll put it all the way up against your arm. It's going to be touching your arm when you come into plank. You can have one on both sides if you've got 2 blocks. So we'll take that little baby shift forward. We'll bend the elbows. And then if you notice that your elbow's smacking into that block and knocking it over, then you know that that's your tendency. Another great way to do this is just to videotape yourself and watch it. It's really hard in this posture to know where we're at because there's so much going on. It might feel like a struggle. You can't see yourself. So things feel differently than maybe they actually are. I don't know what my computer's doing. Got some sort of alert. So another thing to do with the block, again, very similar to that, is to put it right behind the hand. So we want it, again, all the way up against the back of the arm. You can have on one side or both sides at the same time. Again, we'll take that little baby shift forward. My head is in a bookshelf. We'll bend the elbows. And if your elbow is knocking that block over, then you know that that problem is one that you have where the elbows go back too far. So you can continue practicing with that. Again, repeat it as many times as you can, as many times as your arms can handle. You don't feel too fatigued. And then maybe next time that you practice or get on your mat, try again. And then the last thing that I like to do with the block, and this one is definitely better with 2. It's more comfortable, although that discomfort is actually a little bit helpful too, even though it's not super pleasant. So I like to take it, blocks all have these like 3 heights. I like to take it to the second height. If, again, you've got 2, you can just stack them right next to each other. From here, we're going to take it so that it's around the heel of the hand, somewhere in that ballpark. Okay, and then again, if we have 2 steps, so if you have 1, it'll be centered. If you have 2, then the 2 together will be centered on your mat. So from here, you take that shift forward, bend the elbows, kind of lay on the block. So from here, you have to work the body. You have to squeeze the elbows in. You have to lengthen up and out through the crown of your head. You have to firm up the belly, otherwise it gets really uncomfortable on that block. And then you can kind of get that feel for the body's alignment and then start to gain that muscle memory with more repetition. All right, that's it. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but that's the gist of it. So that's a pose that, again, you see it so often. It's in every single yoga class, repeated over and over and over again. And it's something that's hard, right? And if we're not corrected or we start to practice it consistently incorrectly, then it becomes a habit. So